Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your ever so ridiculous host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Today, we are going to go over the Investigator and specifically looking at the D20 Modern Investigator and the fixes that I have proposed for you today. Now, normally I like to try to kick these out just a couple of days after I present the original class and its class abilities, but well, as I've mentioned before and will mention again in the future, life just kind of gets in the way. However, I will keep going with at least getting videos out over the weekend. And if I can, try to boot some things out a little bit faster if possible. But we're not going to cover all of that. That's neither here nor there. For now, we are going to get into the investigator class. When we talked about it before, this was a class that did not do a lot to make your character that much more effective at investigating. It really didn't do anything. It doesn't hurt directly. It's not a negative impact on your class, on your character build. It's just you get a better bang for your buck in other classes. So in that way, it is kind of painful. It's you're not getting a good return on your investment of character levels, but hopefully with these fixes here, there's going to be something that's a little bit more fun and a little bit more effective. This is not the most broken class we've covered. It's not the techie. It's not the arcane arranger, but it's certainly not what you call tier 2 or tier 1. But hopefully with all of this, we get it there. So let's roll right on into this, shall we? To begin with, we've left most everything the same for the requirements. You get that +2 base attack bonus that you need, investigate a 6 ranks. We did condense everything down for the spot, listen, search, down into perception. So that is perception of 6 ranks now, and you keep the sense motive of 6 ranks. And also, when you go down through the class skills there, you'll see that, like I said, perception is condensed down, and that just helps to kind of keep everything nice, neat, and tidy. If you have a question like, well, what if somebody's blind? Can they really search then? Well, maybe not as effectively. You know, they have to use their hands or whatever devices that they might have around them to be able to detect things via touch, but they can still make listen checks. And really, if it's that much of an issue, you can just say, okay, you can't do visual perception checks. You can still hear, you can still kind of feel around, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, uh, that's neither here nor there as well. That's particulars of individual characters. So, base attack bonus is left the same. Fortitude save, reflex, and will, I'm happy with where all of those are at, as well as the defensive bonus and the reputation bonus. Those are all fine. It's mainly just kind of tweaking the skills a little bit there and getting them to match previous fixes I've recommended. And as I've said before with all the other previous advanced class videos, advanced classes live and die on their class abilities. This is where you're going to get the most significant impact for the character overall. These are supposed to help enhance your ability at performing your designated role, the specific task you're building the character for. And in this case, for level 1, you get Canvas the Scene. When making a DC 15 investigation or gather information check to investigate a scene and talk to witnesses respectively, the investigator may gain a better picture of what happened. More importantly, they can see when something is missing from the chain of information that they piece together. They find evidence as normal if it's on site, they gain descriptions of suspects, but also know if or when something is missing. They may not know what is missing, such as clear motives for the crime, or who specifically the suspect is, or what specific evidence is missing, but they will be able to tell that something is missing. Like if the suspect would, or if the victim was clearly stabbed a couple of times, but there is no implement that matches the stab wounds, or nothing that gets sent back to forensics matches the stab wounds, then they will definitely know something is missing from the crime scene there. Or if the victim was shot, and there's no gun on the scene, well, obviously the gun is missing. They may not know what kind right away, but they'll know something is missing, and they'll know to look for bullet holes to try to find fragments of the round. In order to gather that much more information and piece things together. This can also tell the investigator if the crime was personal or emotionally motivated, professional or dispassionate, crime of opportunity, something organized or disorganized, or some combination of the above, which can indicate where the investigator needs to look next. For example, if somebody was shot and they're uh, in a position with a business somewhere, a fairly important one, then the murder may be motivated in relation to their business, especially if it's something comparatively clean or neat. It would be something that's not motivated by a sudden outburst of emotion like crimes of passion tend to be. Well, actually, that's the definition of a crime of passion. It's something that occurs in the heat of the moment. So it's something more dispassionate. It's much more inclined to be neater, less messy. Not that it's going to be perfectly clean every time, hence why you may find some combination of these things, but this can help you set the scene more and help give you help DMs and players figure out where they need to go next to start asking more questions in order to dredge up more information. That's the whole goal of the investigator class, is being able to dredge up information. And to that end, at second level, the investigator gets discern lie. The investigator can discern whether another character is telling the truth by reading facial expressions and interpreting body language. The investigator must be able to see and hear, but not necessarily understand, the target. With a successful sense motive check opposed by the target's bluff check result, the investigator can tell whether the subject is being deliberately and knowingly speaking a lie, being evasive, or withholding information. This ability doesn't reveal the truth or uncover intentional inaccuracies, but you can, through studying the character, a target's behavior, and establishing a baseline of how they respond to different questions and forms of inquiry. You think like there's this old show called Lie to Me. Absolutely fantastic. It's definitely a work of fiction, but it's something that tries to use a certain amount of pseudoscience to it to lend it a bit of credibility. I could ramble on about it a little bit, but we'll avoid that for now. Uh, the idea is that once they understand the baseline of a person's behavior when they're being questioned, they're able to much more readily detect the different ticks, quirks, and tells that let them know when somebody's being honest or being evasive or outright lying to them. They look for little micro expressions, little micro tells, little quick, brief, minuscule flashes of emotional reaction that are supposedly impossible to fully suppress. So that's the idea there. You understand when somebody is lying or being evasive or withholding information. And yeah, and that can help, again, the player running an investigator to understand, okay, I don't know what else I can grill this person on, but they're definitely holding something back. We can't press in too much more. We need to find more evidence and present it to them, hit them with that, and get them to shake something else loose. Then for 3rd, 6th, and ninth level, you get an array of bonus feats, which have been pretty much left the same. You get advanced firearms proficiency, armor proficiency light, armor proficiency medium, brawl, defensive martial arts, dodge, double tap, educated, knockout punch, personal firearms proficiency, and point blank shot. But then we go after that to 4th level, and you get an eye for detail. The investigator learns to fit evidence together in complete chains of logic. When investigating a scene or interviewing a witness or suspect, they gain a bonus equal to 1/2 their investigator level on the following skills: bluff, gather information, intimidate, investigate, perception, and sense motive. They learn to pick all of this information up, and by picking all this information up, they can begin piecing things together. So that's where the bonuses come in. And then at 7th level, we have contacts. The investigator is able to cultivate a cadre of contacts that he can press for information and services appropriate to the kind of contract. Where any character can have a contact, an investigator is able to get a greater degree of service from their own contacts. With a successful bluff, diplomacy, or intimidate check opposed by the NPC, the investigator can treat the target as if they were up to 2 steps friendlier when it comes to rendering a service and compensation, even if they normally don't like the investigator. And think about any detective movie, any movie where somebody's trying to gather information on something that had happened, whether it's a crime, a job that was done, whatever. Even when they go up to somebody who doesn't like them, they're able to usually shake out some kind of information because either there's a mutual respect, or even though the other person may not like the investigator, the detective, whoever, they understand their usefulness, and they also understand that maybe it's wise to offer something up here so that way this guy doesn't become a problem for us later. You see this happen repeatedly in the Dresden Files, for example, which, yes, I am a fan of the series, clearly, and I will bang on about it as much as possible. Definitely worth a read, pick it up. But it's repeatedly, Dresden goes to different contacts that really don't like him. Like Gentleman Johnny Marcone, crime boss of Chicago, does not like Dresden, sees his usefulness, and also understands the wisdom in not pissing off a wizard. He definitely hires on enough defenses to deal with that at one point in time, but overall, it's an uneasy, tenuous understanding that they have between them. Marcone would probably normally have somebody as disrespectful as Dresden shot or dealt with in some fashion, but instead he tolerates him not only because of the power he wields, but he recognizes Dresden's usefulness. So he's willing to offer up that information when normally he might charge in some degree for it, or maybe just use it to call in a favor down the line. So that's the kind of thing that can be done with contacts here. And it should be role played out. The DM and the player should kind of figure that out through role play. And if they don't immediately figure out what all that is, then the DM should let the player know this is probably hanging over the investigator's head, at least in some fashion, you know. Yeah, again, context definitely matters, but I think this is much better and much more useful than just dedicating 3 levels of this to just a very otherwise mediocre contacts ability that you get a low, mid, and high level contact for. I don't like that. Anyways, after that, we come up to the 10th level ability, and that is the missing piece. 10th level. The investigator intuitively puts 2 and 2 together when solving mysteries. The investigator may spend an action point to have a moment of clarity, the epiphany, where all the pieces come together to reveal the larger whole, even if some pieces of information are still missing. The investigator then makes a DC 30 investigate check, and on success, the DM will then put already revealed information into the correct necessary steps to reveal the truth, as well as adding in a missing piece of information. Failure will still have the DM putting information into the correct order, but they do not add in any missing information. For example, the murdered geologist worked for an oil company. He was shot 6 times with a .38 at close range. The crime appears to be personal. His notes indicate the company was drilling to get at reserves in protected areas. He had a heated exchange with his superior over what they were doing, indicating it needed to end, and his wife found the email. Missing info, the email was about an affair. So with this example here, what is assumed is that the investigator assumes that the email to the superior is about needing to end the drilling. They're going into federally protected marshlands, different wildlands that are supposed to remain untouched and as pristine as possible, something that any company could get into massive trouble for under normal circumstances. That seems like a pretty good motive for them, for unscrupulous people within the company to have the geologist dealt with in some fashion. And so that that email could be looked at as critical evidence as to the motive, and it is critical evidence for the motive, but the investigator has either somehow missed, not asked, or just outright misinterpreted or misunderstood that the email had nothing to do with work. It was about an extramarital affair. The fact that the wife found the email gives her motive, especially since it's about an affair. It gives her motive for the murder. Now, the oil company is still doing bad things. The geologist was doing a bad thing, but that's the red herring in a mystery. It's still important. It's still a thing that needs to be dealt with, but it's not the answer to why this person was murdered. It's not the answer as to who murdered him. The oil company had nothing to do with murdering this geologist that they had in their employ. It was his wife, and things like that are key parts of a good mystery. You want to have a couple of avenues where the players have possible answers to the mystery, and they need to sort out which one is correct. In this case, they didn't even consider the wife all that much for this example, and by just revealing that little missing piece of information there about the email to the superior, that puts a whole new twist on everything else. Again, oil company is doing a bad thing, but that's not what the geologist and his superior were fighting about. They were fighting about ending their relationship. Wife finds out about it. Wife feels betrayed in the heat of the moment, unloads the 38 into him at point blank range, and then realizes what she's done, gets rid of the gun, and, well, the story unfolds from there. So that's the idea with that ability. The only real drawback I can see to the investigator class, at least with this build as I've imagined it and implemented it, is that it definitely relies much more on the DM having a much more thorough level of planning in place. But that's going to be true for most mystery oriented games, or any game that has aspect of mystery to it. An investigator can be absolutely critical for that kind of a game, where their abilities are able to start unlocking and piecing together these different bits of information and having a network and web of contacts to rely upon. So that's probably the only real drawback in this case, but you could make the argument that that's going to be true for a lot of different classes. So, it's not the perfect reworking, but then again, that's not the goal. The goal is to make this more fun and make them more functional than what these advanced classes were before. So, go down into the comments below and let me know what your thoughts are. What changes would you make to the investigator class? I'm more than happy to participate with you all and discuss and go back and forth. As I've said, I'm not perfect at this. This is random notes, thoughts, and ideas that I've had over the, I guess 18 years now that I've been playing D20 Modern. And, I'm finally now compiling them all into something coherent and cohesive. So let me know in the thoughts down below. And if you liked the video, go ahead and hit the like button. Or if you didn't like it, still, go down there, hit the dislike button, and let me know where you think I'm wrong in the comments below. But if you want to see more, then there are going to be a couple more videos popping up over this way. One is something the almighty YouTube algorithm by Google has determined that you will enjoy. The other one is just something that I've done recently that, well, it's just on there because it's the most recent thing, but I still think you'll enjoy it. Or if this hasn't been your first stop here at the Gamer's Den and you've watched a couple of these videos now, well then hell, go on down there, hit the subscribe button. You seem to be enjoying something, so why not become a regular member here? But with that said, we're going to call it here. I have been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.